Hey everyone, welcome to episode 2 of Tides Watch. Thank you for joining me again. I'm recording today at January 18th, 2026. Hope everyone had a fantastic holiday season and a wonderful New Year's. Thanks for joining in again. Let's get at it. So we left off last episode talking about the end of the season, a few changes that the Tides were making to improve that roster, which we know needs to be better so they don't finish bottom of the table, and we're looking for a playoff spot next year. Last thing we talked about was the signing of Stella Downing. Still very, very excited with that signing. I think it's an upgrade at the forward position or the wide position if Stephen Hart chooses to play her there. She's very dynamic, can add some goals, great passing, still super excited. So the things that we've seen over the last, month and a bit was the signing of Julia Benatti. I'm really happy with this signing. She played with the Ottawa Rapid last year. She had 3 goals and 1 assist, which I think is awesome. All of them seem to be really great goals. She has the ability to take free kicks, which I think is another addition to the mix. I know Karima Lemire can take the longer ones, but perhaps the shorter ones she can have a chance at. I saw a lot of her highlights. I remember seeing her play, and she was really dynamic. She's a true box-to-box midfielder, which I think the Tides will love to have, where she can come back and protect the goal, but at the same time she can get forward, which I think is super important. And I think this is great because what it's telling the fans is that we've known that there's a few issues or a few areas that we can improve on. First being forward, next being the midfield. One of the issues last year was scoring goals, right? Not only defending, but scoring those goals too, right? I rewatched a few of the games early in the season, and I believe there was a few streaks of 4 or 5 games where not a goal was scored, which is a little concerning, right? And those are the times where the defense actually played really, really well. So, you're losing games 1-0 or 2-0, and you're just asking for a goal or two, and all of a sudden it could be a very different season. So hopefully a Julia Benatti can help with that. The next signing they made was, and I'm gonna destroy this name, I apologize, but I'm looking forward to hearing it, and hopefully we hear it often. But Isin Moe. I'm going to try that. That's probably wrong, but she's Norwegian. Really good signing, I think, because she can play at the center back. We know we lost a few defenders this year, so we have someone who can play central defender or as a midfielder, and I could see her playing more as a kind of a central defensive midfielder if need be. She looked great. I got to see some of her highlights on YouTube, and yeah, she again can score from distance, but is very good at picking out passes too. So I think this is another good signing and kind of a show to the fans and show to the teammates and show to everyone who wants to support the Tides that, hey, we know last year wasn't good enough. We're looking to sign some players, and I believe compared to the rest of the teams, they are kind of doing their business early, right? That's 3 signings already, and it's not even February yet, right? So they really they're really going for it, which is awesome. You can see their Instagram page, and they're showing that, hey, the lights are out. We're people aren't watching, but we're putting in the work. And if you're putting in the work behind the scenes and you're signing players like this, there's no reason that you can't be a playoff team next year, because it looks like they're really, really improving, which I think for everyone's sake, we're all happy to see. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about teams around the league. Those are the big signings of the Halifax Tides, but just for the sake of interest, I'm going to talk about kind of the more high-profile moves. I know I didn't get every single one, but hopefully the ones that I'm picking up make sense. And let's see. I understand this is a Halifax Tides podcast, but this is a new league. This is a a league where we want to showcase and present all the players and hopefully grow this league. So it's important to know what's going on around the league as well. So we'll start with the Calgary Wild. So the first thing we saw from them was they released their roster of who's coming back and who isn't. The big one for me was Stephanie Bukovic, which was their goalkeeper. I was kind of surprised. I thought, she was really, really good for them. She kept them in games, and perhaps it was kind of her decision to move on and try something else. But I was kind of concerned. I was like, ooh, how are Calgary going to do this? But they did sign Caitlin Talbert. And from the highlights and from the videos I saw of her, she looks really, really good too. So I think that's kind of a like-for-like replacement, and I think the Tides are happy. It should be interesting to see what else they do in this offseason here. Next up is the Ottawa Rapids. So they lost both Benatti and Stella Downing, both to the Halifax Tides, which is kind of interesting. Maybe there's a connection there, but two of their better, in my opinion, substitute players / starters, because it was hard to get playing time, right? You have Desiree Scott, the Destroyer, who, is still making some big tackles. You had Mina Lee. There's a lot of positions, and, I can see why Benatti and Stella both said, I kind of want more playing time. I want a bigger chance. I want a bigger role. Let's move on, and that's great. But it's interesting that the Tide signed Sadie Waite to kind of come in and hopefully bridge some of that gap and come in and play in the midfield and link up play much like Benatti did, and hopefully run at players and create things much like Stella Downing did. So let's see how that goes. I'm interested. I know she played in the U.S., I believe Nebraska, if off the top of my head, if that's right. But yeah, let's see what do, because I think they still have some positions to fill, including Desiree Scott, who did retire this year. Next up is the Montreal Roses, and they signed Lisa Perchersky. I remember seeing on the Vancouver website that they weren't keeping Perchersky, and I was kind of confused because Lisa had, I believe, the assist on the game-winning goal in the finals. So that's a pretty big contribution, and throughout the season, she was a big contributor for the Vancouver Rise. So the fact that Montreal scooped her up is really good. I also saw a picture, I believe it was her and Tanya Boychuk playing at a youth level together. So perhaps there's a link there, and Tanya was able to kind of convince her to come over, and I could see her getting more time again, because Perchersky was still coming off the bench. There's a lot of talent on Vancouver, so no surprise. But let's see how that works out. Next up is the aforementioned Vancouver Rise. So the first signing they made was Sura Yeka, who is a Canadian soccer player, and I believe she's going to play right back and replace Jasmine Spencer, who I think might be one of the most underrated players in the league last season. She was fantastic. If you remember in the final, she saved the goal off the goal line, I believe, too. So she was really, really good. So, fingers crossed that Sura Yeka can kind of come in and, compete and take that position and play at a similar level that Spencer did. Vancouver also signed Audrey Francis, who is an attacking-minded player, which I'm kind of interested about, because you look at Vancouver Rise's offense, and that was kind of their bread and butter, right? You had Mariah Lee, you had Abdu, you had Di Filippo, and you had Holly Ward. So, usually it was Mariah Lee coming and kind of taking one of those three spots. So the fact they added another person, it might get a little crowded there, or you could see maybe a position change or a formation change rather, and more wingers and maybe a few players play on the wing. But really interesting to see them sign more offensive players. Maybe they're afraid they might lose someone too in this offseason. Last but not least is AFC Toronto. One of the big things they did was they re-signed Esther Okonkwo, which I'm kind of surprised she didn't move on to a bigger club or a bigger level. Perhaps a lot of people still want to see is the consistency from her. to see if she's the real deal. But, I think take away the Africa Cup of Nations, and she's right there with DB Pridham in terms of goals. So it should be interesting to see how she does this season with a full season, a healthy season. I know she had some injury troubles there for a little bit too. So let's see. Next was the re-signing of Victoria Pickett. I think that's also a good one. You need to keep your good midfielders, and alongside Emma Regan, she was dominant in that central midfield. I would argue that the central of the park was dominated by the Toronto, and that's why you see them, dominate the league essentially until the last game of the season where they ended up losing. But you can see that point spread. A lot of it was dictated by the midfield, which brings me to Emma Regan, who is moving on. Kind of a surprise where she was the captain of AFC Toronto, but it looks like she had an offer she couldn't refuse. It's an expansion team in the NWSL, the team in Denver there. So, let's see how that goes. I think it's a good thing for the league in the sense of you can show that, hey, these players can play at a higher level. But it's also a double-edged sword in the sense of the league lost one of their best players. One of the few Iron women who I believe maybe one of three who played every single minute of every single match. So I think that's a huge loss for Emma Regan, which, slide in Samantha Chang from Vancouver Rise, who when I saw Vancouver wasn't having Samantha Chang, I was really confused because she was one of their dominant midfield players. But I believe she is a local girl, like a local Toronto girl. So a chance to play kind of closer to home and in front of home fans and play for a really good team. Not that Vancouver isn't. They won the championship, but to play at a high level again, I think that's kind of a nice Emma Regan. You can't say replacement, but someone who can kind of ease the burden and have a settling effect, and okay, we still have a good midfield and we still can play. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell. I know it's a short one this month, but I just wanted to wrap things up. Looking forward to our next conversation, and yeah, go Tides go. Before I go, I want to shout out another Tides podcast, the Tides Pod, which I think you can find on Podcast Apple. They had a really good podcast with Annika Leslie, a nice interview with a lot of information. So yeah, sharing the love, and hopefully they can continue going too, because it was a really good episode with them. And yeah, let's go Tides go.